picked up below average players that other teams didn't want that won't be here when they're actually good. So I'm not going to stress about, I don't think Josh Jackson and Frank Jackson will be the answer. So I'm not going to stress about like those guys. But I will say this: we definitely need to worry about guys like Bay, Stewart, even Killian Hayes, who I don't think is the answer either. But the other guys I have high hopes for, and I also don't mind them taking because we actually do need another star to go with King, another young lottery pick.
I agree with you, Mike, but doesn't it concern you that the way they're playing, not that they're losing? Last year, you saw a bunch of gritty guys, just running all over the court and diving for loose ball, doing the right thing. They're not doing that for 48 minutes in games this year, especially in the fourth quarter of games where they've had leads. That's what's pisses me off.
Well, the losing takes a toll on players mentally. You can only get up. And, I'm not sure. Do you guys think Dwayne Casey's the answer? Do you think Dwayne Casey will be the coach of the team when they're playoff contenders and Eastern Conference final contenders?
No. And that the compete level, that's has to do with him a little bit too, doesn't it? I mean, he's got to be blamed for some of it. I mean, it's not all just the players' fault.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the coach as well.
Yeah.
All right. Last night they announced the Heisman Finalists, and some years they bring 3 people to New York. Sometimes they bring 4. Sometimes they bring 5. Whatever. And the Heisman Finalists are Bryce Young, Aiden Hutchinson, C.J. Stroud, and Kenny Pickett. No Kenneth Walker. And look, it's become, because of the Michigan State thing on social media, how can Kenneth Walker get in and Aiden Hutchinson? I've heard people, it's the ESPN love of Aiden Hutchinson and all this kind of stuff. I don't think it's that. Maybe I'm naive. I just think, for whatever reason, Kenneth Walker III, maybe it's because he plays at Michigan State and not at a blue blood program or whatever, got disrespected. I think it's more recency bias because in the Ohio State game, he was hobbled and only carried the ball 6 times because they were behind, because their defense sucked, and they had to throw the ball. But you look at the complete body of work for this season, and maybe you can argue, he might not have been one of the best players. He is, to me, he's almost the MVP of college football. Without Kenneth Walker III, where do you think Michigan State would be? Nowhere. I mean, if you want to play the stats game, he averaged 6 yards a carry with 18 touchdowns and 1,636 yards. He was the main reason they beat Michigan, was Kenneth Walker III. He should be in one of the finals, one of the top 4. Now,
I also don't want to discount the fact that I'm not saying you can put anybody back there, but I think their offensive line played very well for most of the season. And if you get somebody back there that is productive. Now, if they didn't get Kenneth Walker, I think Mel Tucker goes out, and whether it's in the transfer portal or however, but they attract somebody that can be back there and do a job because they were so good. Peyton Thorne was good.
Yeah, but hold on, John.
That's
John,
I
I disagree here. I'm sorry. He breaks tackles.
I agree. I'm not saying I didn't say he didn't do that.
You almost made it seem like they could get any running back in there. Like
you're saying the only reason they were successful.
I said that the MVP.
I think they could have been still very successful with Jaden Reed, with Naylor, with the receiving core that they had. I think they still offensively could have been successful. Would they be 10-2? Probably not.
Okay.
He was comparable with Ingram and Henry, the last recent winners.
Right, stat-wise.
The fact that he's not invited is a joke.
Well, Derrick Henry set the all-time rushing record in the SEC when he won.
You don't have to set a conference. He had
300 yards
They had
more.
that stat window that they were very comparable, all 3 of them. He had a huge game, every single game virtually, except for when he got limited carries in the Western Kentucky game?
Yeah, the Youngstown State
in the
game.
Ohio State game, he was a victim of the circumstances in a game, and then also an injury, and then he bounced back from the injury and had a huge game. And what I thought, he had way more of a moment than Kenny Pickett ever did this year with the 5 touchdown game. The 58-yard touchdown against Michigan was one of the most impactful plays in this college football season. The fact that he is not there is a joke.
It's a joke. It's horrible.
He should have been the 5th invite,
Yes.
or he should have been invited over Pickett, because he had a better season than Pickett. The 3rd best quarterback instead of the best running back is criminal. And you know what? If he wore a Michigan uniform, he'd be there. And he just would be there. And this is Spartan disrespect. Period. End of story. And this is why Sparty has the complex that they have, because they get treated differently than other programs get treated.
The big blood programs, yeah. Now, look, if he was a Michigan player and had the same stats,
He'd be there in a heartbeat.
yeah, but I don't think they'd have him and Hutchinson. Hold on, I don't think they'd have him and Hutchinson.
No. And look,
Well, you could. Ohio State did. What, 2 years ago with Chase
I know.
Young?
I just don't think they would. That's all.
So, but I know we're all fired up about.
Hold on. We have a break. All right. This Flores update. Up next.
WXYT FM and WXYT HD1 Detroit. An Odyssey station. Sports headlines. All day, every day. From the Sold by Mike Z Sports Desk. This is 97.1. The Ticket.
Brought to you by Moran Buick GMC. Another lead evaporating for the Pistons, who just can't seem to find a way to win. The Thunder storm back for a 114-103 victory at LCA after outscoring Detroit 64-40 in the second half, despite a career scoring game by rookie Cade Cunningham, who put up 28 points, 11 boards, 5 assists, and 2 steals, the first to put up those numbers since Grant Hill as a rookie for the Pistons. As Detroit falls to 4-19, that is the worst in the NBA. Detroit continues their 9-game slide. The only defensive player to win the Heisman coming from Ann Arbor, and now another Michigan force on that side of the ball will have a shot as a finalist. Aiden Hutchinson, announced as one of the top 4 players in college football, and could be the first non-offensive player to win the trophy since Charles Woodson back in the 90s. Meanwhile, the 1,600 yards and 18 touchdowns of MSU's Kenneth Walker, not good enough for the trip to New York, but Mel Tucker does win Regional Coach of the Year and is a finalist for National Coach of the Year. And the Patriots win a cold, windy Monday Night Football on the road as they outlast the Bills in Buffalo 14-10. Quarterback Mac Jones called it a weird game, but they did get the victory. The Bills fall all the way down to number 7 in the AFC with the loss. New England is on top. In AP College Basketball Top 25, Michigan falling outside the ranked teams. MSU is at 19. The Wolverines will play again tonight on the road at Nebraska. At the Ticket Update Desk, I'm Chris Villar. For more, stay tuned to 97.1 The Ticket and Odyssey.com.
Live from the Jamie Samuelson Studio, Stoney and Jansen on 97.1 The Ticket.
Dan Campbell joined us at 7:35, 248-539-9797, talking about the reasons why Kenneth Walker III, not one of the top 4 finalists for the Heisman Trophy, who get invited to New York for Saturday's ceremony. Aiden Hutchinson is there from Michigan, and a lot of Spartan fans are saying it's a Hutchinson thing. I agree with Gov. I think of the 4 that are there, Kenneth Pickett should not be there. Walker should be there ahead of Kenneth Pickett. Now, you can argue a defensive player, Willie Anderson of Alabama, better stats, more tackles for loss, that whole thing. I haven't seen him play enough, but most people believe that, Anderson was the best defensive player in the country. So
here's the issue that I have with a lot of these national awards, and we got off the rails a little bit there. I do think, and I said all year long, especially after I witnessed firsthand what Kenneth Walker did to Michigan,
right,
that he belonged in New York.
Yes.
We're in a time where, and we have the availability for all these Heisman voters to watch whatever they want to watch, do research. I believe that I believe there's a large part that are lazy and uneducated when they vote, and that's why it's become such a quarterback award, because
right,
you turn on ESPN, you turn on CBS Sports, you turn on Yahoo, whatever you search engine you use, what are the highlights that come up? It's Bryce Young throwing touchdown passes. It's Kenny Pickett not sliding, and that becomes a giant story. It's name recognition, and it's the highlights that are shown. Now, sometimes it is a running back making a great run, but for the most part, we're all about the sizzle. as you talked
He had
about
the
earlier.
sizzle.
I understand that, but that's not what sells. It's quarterbacks, and this has been a quarterback award. If you look, it's been 2015. Derrick Henry won the award in 2015. Since then, it's been quarterback.
There are 928 voters. 25 come from the state of Michigan. So I want to see the regional breakdown after Saturdays and see how that pans out, number one. I also, you're not allowed, if you vote, you can't say who you voted for
until the ceremony.
Like Rico has a vote. So I'm sure Kenneth Walker got a vote from Rico, which he should.
Doug has a vote.
Doug has a vote as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll find out, hopefully, if he'll reveal what he voted for as well.
What was the best college football game this season?
Best college football game this season?
The one that most people watched.
No, what was the best college football games this season? That
Michigan State, Michigan
Can
was a
we go
great
back
game.
to October 30th and 31st and what the country was talking about that game? It got national recognition,
Yes.
and he had an electric 58-yard, game-changing, game-winning touchdown. He had his moment. I agree with John. I think there's a laziness here. The Hutchinson thing, I mean, look, I thought it was comical last week. I get that he's getting invited. You know, they will occasionally do this with a defensive guy that's a leader that won a big game and was huge in beating the Buckeyes.
I don't think it's a token invite.
Well, here's what it is.
Let's get to the bottom of this. I actually agree with
It's recency bias. That's what it is. You saw Aiden Hutchinson the last time. I'm not taking anything away from him because he was great. His last two games, Ohio State versus Ohio State and Iowa, he was dominant. People were voting.
Penn State?
And Penn State as well. Okay, so that wasn't his last two. He did that game before.
So it's not recency bias.
Okay, well, I think it is because I think a lot of the voters saw Saturday
Heisman
and saw the
moments.
Ohio State.
Heisman moments.
Right, okay,
And so
fine.
Kenneth Walker had a great Heisman moment against Michigan. He had a Heisman moment to start the season
He had a Heisman
against
moment.
Northwestern.
He had Heisman moments all season. But I'm saying a lot of the voters, I'm echoing your point as far as lazy. They just saw the most recent thing. Aiden Hutchinson, he was MVP of the Big Ten championship game. I'm going to vote for him. I don't believe this whole it's an ESPN's conspiracy.
Well, come on. Look, I will steal the words of Rush Limbaugh here when he talked about Donovan McNabb. ESPN is desirous to have Michigan be way up top and get a lot of exposure and attention. They are. To me, that's a fact. That's not an opinion. So I think it helped Aiden Hutchinson's Heisman candidacy. Like I said, I'm not against him necessarily being invited. He was certainly one of the top 10 players in college football this year.
Yeah.
But you got to look at Anderson and Georgia too, and you kind of Alabama. I mean, and then also
Jordan Davis of Georgia. I mean, we were talking about him earlier this season.
I can't get away from the fact that if Kenneth Walker III wore a Georgia uniform or an Oklahoma uniform or a Michigan uniform, that I'm just 100% convinced. I don't think it's opinion. I think it's fact that he would be there.
Well, it's an opinion, but you're probably correct. It's not a fact.
I'll go 99%.
Right, well, whatever. But it's an opinion.
It's just a joke.
It's awful. It's awful. I think it's
It's
ridiculous.
Michigan State disrespect. It just is.
It's disrespect for teams that aren't the quote-unquote
It's disrespect. I think it's disrespect to the Heisman Trophy. It's supposed to be the most outstanding player.
Right.
And I think that Kenneth Walker should be one of the most outstanding players, should be standing in New York. I do believe
If you
Aiden
had a
Hutchinson
vote-
is one of the most outstanding players. My vote,
If
I had a vote,
you vote for three guys.
all right,
That's what
I
it
would
is.
have Bryce Young, Alabama. I would have Kenneth Walker, and I would have Aiden Hutchinson.
I agree
would
with
have
that.
I would have all three of those guys in there. And I wouldn't have Kenny Pickett.
No, neither would I.
And honestly, I wouldn't have C.J. Stroud.
I
I know
would.
that he had good numbers, but there's.
He was great. He was great all season.
He also had the three best receivers in college football, and that is to my point. How is one of those guys not in the Bolitnikoff Award?
Oh, I know.
These awards are there's no validity to them. I'm sorry, and it does go and honors all of these kids, and I don't want to take away from the winners, because they did have great seasons. All right, that's there's no question about that. But when you go to the validity of these awards, I think there's too many people that have Heisman votes. I think there's too many people that have votes for some of these other awards that don't do the work and look and say, who is the most outstanding player, not just who's getting all the highlights as a quarterback. Who's on a national championship level team. It has to be who is the most outstanding player. And to not have a defensive player win the award in 20 years or 22 years, whatever it is, I think it's crazy. We've had defensive players that have been unbelievable. Orlando Pace as an offensive lineman. It's unbelievable.
I know. Let's go to Rich in Novi. What's up, Rich?
Oh my God, seriously? If you look at it is a quarterback award. Let's get that straight. Because if you look at the years that Derrick Henry and Mark Ingram won, there wasn't a lot of great quarterbacks that year. So obviously Kenny Walker's up against it. But let's be real here. 3 weeks ago, if you're looking at the Heisman watch from like week 5 or week 6 to now, 3 weeks ago, they weren't talking about Aiden Hutchinson or Kenny Pickett. They were talking about Kenny Walker. They're talking about Alabama's quarterback and a little bit about C.J. Stroud all season long. This is all recency bias.
Yes.
And your point you just made, it is about wanting Michigan on top. People want to see Michigan on top. They want to see that brand be good. I don't care for Michigan, but I get it. And so with Michigan having the recency bias, Michigan are beating out Ohio State, playing good against Iowa, win a Big Ten championship. Yeah, it makes total sense why they put Aiden Hutchinson. Kenny Pickett, though, I do not get. I don't see that. But to snub Kenny Walker is just outright disrespect for Michigan State that everybody has. Like, nobody wants to see Michigan State be successful. That is college basketball, college football. That is so evident year in and year out.
Well, I disagree about college basketball. I think they get a benefit of the doubt sometimes, whether it's seeding sometimes. Yes, there's no disrespect for Michigan State in college basketball.
Do you know why?
Why?
Because they're one of the elite programs in college basketball.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, everything that we do have a gripe about with, part of it is playing for brand names, right? And I think that's what a lot of the issue we're having with Kenneth Walker is. Yeah, that's why Michigan State. I think they get that in hoops.
If you make it Hutchinson over Walker, but it's about voting, and C.J. Stroud stole Walker's votes. This is popular vote, and Hutchinson Stroud finished stronger than Walker. I think Pickett is the one who stole the votes, to be honest with you.
Anybody look at Kenny Walker's stat line against Penn State?
Yeah, he had like 138 yards or something. It was amazing. Like
He had
in the snow.
Because of the Western Kentucky game, I believe it was that one where he had the 6 carries or something.
Youngstown State.
Youngstown State. Yeah, that was, you get that. The Ohio State game, I'll repeat myself. I thought he was a victim of circumstances in the game, the way it got out of control, but also he had an injury.
Yes, there's no doubt. And
how many of those voters, and this is an honest question, how many of those voters do you think knew or know that against Ohio State or against Penn State that Kenny Walker was hurt?
Not very many.
Very, very few. Probably, how many you say in the state of Michigan? 25?
25.
I bet you there's 25 voters that knew that.
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe a few that are diligent in doing their work. That's the issue that we have. There's way too many voters.
I mean, maybe it's Heisman Trophy winners. I mean, do you think all these guys are sitting there watching every game?
No.
I bet you one of the voters doesn't know who Kenneth Walker III is.
I'm sure there are some. Right. David Clarkston, what's going on?
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good.
Hey, you guys can debate whether or not Walker should be in or not, but Anderson to Alabama is not completely wrong. How do you win the University as the best defensive player if you're not there? Aiden Hutchinson's a great player. He's going to be a stud in the NFL. I get it. But how do you give someone the best defensive player in the country award and yet he doesn't get an invite? That makes no sense whatsoever.
We'll see where he ends up in the standings of the vote.
Yeah.
I mean, this has become a regional award to a certain extent, because the voting blocks are very regional. I mean, how many votes from the West Coast is Kenneth Walker III going to get?
I mean, that's exactly it.
Right.
Oh, and that's been the issue of who was it? About 4 or 5 years ago, the running back that was at Stanford, Love.
Yeah. Bryce Love.
Yeah, Bryce Love had a great year. And it was before, a couple years before he was hurt,
yes.
And then ended up. But he had one really good year. Those that are on this side of the Mississippi don't see him play because they're playing, at 10 o'clock at night.
Right.
And they're not getting votes because there are way too many voters, and they don't do the work to see who is actually the most outstanding player.
I had a vote one year.
Oh, you did?
94. I voted for Rashawn Salam, number 1. He won.
Yeah.
I voted for Steve McNair, and Kajana Carter 3. I think it ended up being Salam, Carter, and
Yeah.
the other names in there.
How'd you have it for 1 year and not get to do it again?
Because I think Jamie did something with a college football pregame show, and they decided that he covered college football more than I did, so they gave it up, which is fine.
Yeah.
Okay, it was cool.
Do you think Jamie would have put Kenneth Walker the third in New York?
Damn right. Damn freaking right. Heather has news coming up next.
I do. So most people don't put up a Christmas tree in their bedroom. Not really standard practice, but you might want to after you hear the results of a new study.
Happiness, sleepability.
97.1 the ticket.
Hey, I do want to tell you that happiness, sleepability, it all comes from having a great financial outlook. And Level 1 Bank is where you got to go. I've been bragging about them for so long. It's my personal bank. They do my checking, my savings, even my mortgage. And if you're looking to buy a new home or build a new home, if you're considering refinancing, I highly recommend Level 1 Bank. My mortgage experience was outstanding. The communication with my loan officer was good, and they were patient with me on all my questions, and they were very creative in structuring my loan. Everyone's situation is different, and they're going to take a look at it. They're going to construct something that is exactly right for you and beneficial to you, and make sure that you get the best available rate. Level 1 Bank has earned my trust for all of these reasons, and they have a wide variety of mortgage programs like first-time home buyer, new construction and renovation loans, jumbo loans, doctor loans. They even have a special mortgage program designed for first responders, medical professionals, teachers, and government or nonprofit employees. If you want to learn more, go to level1bank.com. If you want to talk to someone, call Dan Irvin at 866-707-LOAN. That's 866-707-LOAN. Level 1 Bank is a member of the FDIC and an equal housing lender.
97.1 The Ticket. Traffic.
From the WWJ AM 950 Traffic Center, this report brought to you by eBay. Out of Monroe County, there is still a closure, 75 both directions at Luna Pier, closed due to down power lines. You can use Dixie Highway or Telegraph. Out around Ann Arbor, there's a disabled vehicle, US 23 northbound at 94. Then some road work scheduled today, 96 Jeffries westbound local lanes between Greenfield and Southfield Freeway. A right lane closure is scheduled. I'm Michelle Penny up with traffic.
97.1 The Ticket and the Bet 1270. Your homes for the NFL on Westwood One. The Minnesota Vikings host the Pittsburgh Steelers. Thursday night football. Pre-game at 8 on the Bet 1270. Detroit.
Shop on eBay to get more for your dough on stand mixers. Or get more for your buck on tech and gaming gear. Get more and save more on premium brands with eBay's exclusive deals.
So given a choice, I'd rather have a robot butler than a jetpack. But what was my